it is recording, and it's just a conversation. So,
Alright.
alright. Whoops. We're alright.
Here we go.
Alright.
Alright.
Let's
One
circle.
here.
Yep, one coaster.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay, this is me, Joan Benzinger.
Alright, Grandma. What's your full name?
My full name is Mary Joan. Teresa is my confirmation name, and it was Kylie. Now it's Benzinger, and proud of it. and proud of it, yes.
So, when were you born?
I was born on August the 24th, 1928.
1928.
And I was the first born of my mom and dad. And I had a brother that was born like 3 years after me, and a sister born 10 years after me, and we're all named with a J. I'm Joan, then there's Jerry and Joyce. So my mom and dad always thought of us as the three J's. Okay, we are the three J's.
The three J's.
We are the three J's, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and
Jerry, Joyce. Okay. And where are Jerry and Joyce now?
Jerry has passed on.
Okay.
He died in 1989. Okay.
Okay.
And my sister Joyce, she is in Arlington, Virginia, and not in good health right now. She had a stroke, and she is in a rehab place right now. But my sister was in the convent of Benedictine for like 13 years. And they came out of the convent and then moved from Mom and Dad's house to Cincinnati, and then up to Arlington, Virginia. And she's been in Arlington, Virginia at least 20 years, you know.
As long as I remember.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Well,
okay.
So.
And I live here in this condo, and I love it, and I call this my home. This is my home right
Erlanger,
here.
Kentucky.
Right, yeah.
So, you're born in 1928, and your parents are, what are your parents' names?
My mother, and I got some data here about my mother's name was Thelma. Well, her maiden name was McGarry, and when she married my dad, Kylie. Now, I'm going to do a little genealogy here and talk about the families. My mother's family lived in 405 East 16th Street, which is like one block up from Eastern Avenue. And this was my grandma's. My mother's mother and Grandpa Kylie, Grandpa McGarry, I should say. It was their home that they made it into an apartment. So when my mom and dad got married, they moved downstairs in the apartment from her mother and father. Now I will tell you this. Some of the things I'm going to tell you, it's really hard that you're going to believe. It's hard to believe. Actually, there was no basement. There was just a cellar. There was no furnace. We heated by fireplaces, and to be honest with you, I remember the wash machine being in the kitchen, and I don't know where my mom and dad hung their clothes. Probably in the bathroom. That's all I can think of, you know. So anyhow. This is the way I grew up, you know what I mean? We lived there until I was like, I know from maybe 6 or 7 years old, we were still there because I went to La Salette for my first 5 years of grade school, and I remember that the streetcar went down. Came up Eastern Avenue, and my dad had to go down and teach me to go to La Salette on the streetcar, and so he waited with me for I think 2 weeks to make sure I got on the streetcar, And then, I didn't know this till years later, he followed me. He followed me to make sure that I would get off at the right spot. And so here is a 6-year-old getting on the streetcar on her own, going to school, and then getting back on the streetcar to get back home. So that's the start of my life right there, you know. I will tell you this, that my grandpa McGarry raised chickens in the backyard. And
Okay.
there's a picture of me somewhere that I'm back there, and Grandpa's feeding the chickens, and I look like I might be like 4 years old, you know. So it's hard to believe, but this is the way we didn't think anything of it. I mean, you know, we didn't think anything of it.
So that's 1932, I guess. Picture taken. If you're 4 years old.
Yeah, just about.
Okay.
Just about that.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
But anyhow, and so I will stop there for the McGarry family. Now I'll tell you about my dad's family. My dad's family lived on Greenup Street.
Keep going.
Are we getting that?
Yeah. Keep going. I'm just gonna.
My dad's family lived at 1609 Greenup Street, and at one time it was just one big house, but then they made theirs into apartment too.
Mm-hmm.
Later, Grandma and Grandpa Kiley. Well, Grandpa Kiley died before I was born, so I never knew him. But Grandma Kiley lived in the upper part of the apartment, and she had 5 boys. Okay, there was Ed, and there was John, and there was Larry, and there was my dad, and there was Francis. So they had 5 boys. So probably growing up, they needed that house, you know. And but later on, they transformed it into an apartment downstairs, and then okay, are you okay?
Yeah, just trying to mess with the camera. Okay.
Should I move over?
No. You're great, Grandma.
All right, okay.
You're great. You're the star of the show.
All right.
There we go. Feel good
Okay.
about that. All right.
I spent more time with my grandma and Grandpa McGarry than I did my grandpa. Well, my grandma Kylie, but we'll just leave it there. I will tell you this: my Grandpa McGarry, he worked for a shoe place, a shoe company, or where they made shoes, I think, you know, and I found that out. And then Grandpa Kiley worked for Baldwin Piano. And I remember my dad talking about the fact that he would bring home these great big old cardboard boxes that some of the pianists came in, and they would use those as playhouses and stuff like that. So anyhow, they all had happy childhoods. They did, yeah. And I got to know my uncles, and then okay, I should go back to my mother again now. Okay, I'll be going back and forth. Okay.
Hey, that's okay.
My mother and had like 2 brothers and 2 sisters. There was James and John McGarry, and there was Elvira. Okay. We danced to that. So
Okay.
And then there was Elvira, and then Mother, and then there had a sister. Well, we call her Aunt Dolly, and her name was Dolores. Okay, and so and Sis left and went to Lexington to become a nurse and lived in Lexington, and she would come to visit us on holidays, we didn't know her real name for a long time. We just called her Aunt Sis. You know, I mean, we didn't know her name was Elvira. Maybe she didn't want anybody to know her name was Elvira. I have no idea. And we called my Aunt Dolly, that would be Dolores, Aunt Dolly. And so that's part of the family. Okay? That is part of the family. But, well, I can't think of any more to say about that. But I remember growing up in the apartment downstairs at Grandma McGarry's house and being heated by the fireplace. And one other thing that I remember about being there is that I had the chicken pox when we were there. And my dad went out and it snowed that day. And then I wasn't allowed to go out, of course, and I was supposed to have the shades down and to protect your eyes and all that with the chicken pox. But my dad went out and built me a snowman so I could look out the window and see a snowman. Oh. And it's just bringing back memories, just talking about that kind of stuff, you know, and the house is still there, you know, and the family's gone. My mother's brother, James, went on to be an attorney, and he ran for office in Covington, I know that. And I didn't really know too much about Brother John, her brother John. I only know that he was married one time, but I think was divorced and came back and lived with Grandma and Grandpa. And I'm trying to think what else I should be telling you about their house, but it's still there, and I'm still here, and then well, let's go back to Dad's now, you know, because now this is going to sound really dumb, but they had a pantry and an ice box. No, they had a refrigerator. My grandma and Grandpa McGarry did not have a refrigerator. They had an ice box, and they had an ice man that came to deliver the ice, and once, twice a week. They had a sign they put in the window to tell him to come and deliver the ice, and then they had what they called a pan underneath it, and that caught all the drippings from the ice, and whoever would come in would have to pick up that pan and empty it over in the kitchen sink. And another thing I remember about the house of Grandma and Grandpa was that although they had the ice box, and they had a big old stove in there, that's how they warmed the one room that they almost all lived in, because they had the stove, the big old black stove that's in that room. And also, Grandma had what they called an ice box, and that sat on her kitchen window, and she kept like her butter and stuff like that in there. So you had to open. You had to open the window and reach in and get out the butter or stuff, you know, anything like that she had in there. So if you can picture that, picture that, and it was a box, an ice box in the window that she kept, I don't know what else she kept, butter, bacon, and stuff maybe that wasn't too perishable, you know, and then think about a great big old black snow.
So I guess when the refrigerator came around, it's like, wow, this thing's amazing.
Well, they lived with that. They lived with that for a long time. Yeah, wow. Yeah, and so we're going back a long ways with some of the things that my mother and Dad grew up with, and we grew up with, you know. So it's the memories of those kind of things. I still picture my Grandma McGarry sitting at the window with her rocking chair. I have her rocking chair in my bedroom, and she quilted. She quilted all the time. She made a quilt for each one of her daughters, and when they got married, she gave them the quilt. And I have part of my mother's quilt and made it into like it's in my bedroom. It's about that big, and that hangs in my bedroom. And my Aunt Dolly, who I became very close to, gave me her quilt before she died. So I've got her quilt that Grandma McGarry made for her when she got married. Okay, so I got enough about the family. Enough about the family. And about that family, I should say that Dan's family with his brothers, they all married late in life, and actually two of them married very late in life, and Uncle John never had any children, and Uncle Francis, who was the youngest of the boys, married, and he had like 2 girls and a boy, and they took the downstairs apartment that I talked about where Grandma Kylie lived, and I visited there once or twice because Uncle Francis was my godfather, and then his son Michael was Jim's godfather, and then how's that go? Okay, it was all in the family. Okay, Michael. Let's see. Okay, give me a minute. Okay, Francis was my godfather. I am here it is. Francis is my godfather. I am Michael's godmother, and then Michael is Jim's godfather. So we kept it going in 3 traditions of the godfather. Jim didn't see much of Michael because when he married, they moved to Canada, and we all didn't hardly ever got together, you know. So okay.
Well, keeping in touch now is I can text Brent, and Brent's in New Zealand.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Today's the 27th of March 2023, and my brother Brent's in New Zealand, and I can text him and he can receive it 5 seconds later, and I'm sure keep me in touch when somebody's in Canada is a lot tougher.
I kept in touch with my cousins. This would be Uncle Francis' children, Pat and Eileen, and because they went to La Salette Academy, and that's where I went to high school. Okay, we'll talk about high school. So anyhow, I don't know how my mom and dad met, but I do know Mother used to talk about Dad coming down to La Salette and on his lunch hour, and I guess talk to the girls because it's an all-girls school, you know. And one more thing about my dad was the fact that he worked for the railroad, the LNCNO, all his life. He worked there for like 50 years before he retired. So, okay, you want to make a pause now?
Yeah, we can.
Let me get my act together again now. Okay.